everyone, welcome back to Bloom TV. Today I am going to be doing a non-spoiler review for The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, and this is going to be a completely free of spoilers video, so feel free to watch it if you haven't read the book, and if you're interested you can carry on watching. So this book is quite a release, it was very hyped when it was first released, which was last year I believe, i.e. it was released in 2013. I'm filming this in 2014 if you're watching this in 2015. So many dates. And this had a very big kind of publicity campaign behind it, and it was published by Bloomsbury in the UK and in America I believe as well. And Samantha Shannon is a very young author. She is 22 I believe, or when this was published she was, 22. She was born in 1991. Maths. I don't do maths. And let me just get onto the video. She is a very young author and she graduated from Oxford, so obviously quite academic and very clever. And this kind of did have a very big publicity campaign behind it, I think partly because it was published by Bloomsbury, and this is the first book in what is planned to be a 7-book series. So obviously comparisons to J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter were made, even though this is an adult fantasy book, not a children's fantasy book. And I think that kind of hindered it in a lot of people's views, because it was so hyped. A lot of people felt very disappointed by that, and so it has had some mixed reviews. And I'm just going to start off by saying I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. And there were definitely things that I didn't like about this book. But before I say kind of what I thought, I'll just give you a quick premise. And I'm just going to start off by saying this is a really complex book with a kind of very complex world. But basically it's a kind of fantasy novel. It's set in 2069 or 2059, and in London, but it's kind of there's been an alternate history. Basically there's clairvoyancy exists in this world, and there's many different types of clairvoyance, but clairvoyancy is banned in London, and there's a scion government, and that has been in place since the reign of Edward the VI or Edward the VII, the monarch that came after Victoria at least. And this kind of government has been in place, and they don't like clairvoyance, they think, and it's kind of portrayed as being unnatural, and so because of that clairvoyants were driven underground, and there's now a massive criminal underworld completely run by clairvoyants, completely made up of clairvoyants. And this story follows our main character Paige, who is 19 years old, and she is part of one of these underground crime gangs, and she is one of the rarest types of clairvoyant, which is I think she's a dream walker, which is really rare. And there's different orders, and there's actually not a map, a diagram at the beginning of the book, and this is all the different types of clairvoyance there is, and kind of the different sections within sections. It's quite confusing. And Paige is one of those, and she works for this gang, and at the beginning of the novel, not at the beginning, in the first kind of 30 pages, she is captured for doing something criminal. She's actually captured by the government and taken to this place, and is thrown into a completely situation which she doesn't know about. So that kind of setup exists for this novel, and it kind of develops mostly from there. And it's I don't really want to go much more into the plot details, because I think finding out more about this and kind of the twists and turns of the plot is what really makes it quite interesting. So now I'm going to go on to my thoughts, and I did really enjoy this on the whole, but there is a massive info dump of information in the first 50 pages. You really have to push through. There's massive sections which just aren't very well integrated into the novel, and it's they're supposed to be parts of Paige's thoughts, but it feels so unnatural. It's literally a textbook of history of this kind of society, but they're supposed to be her thoughts, and it's kind of a bit weird because it feels jilted because they're kind of interspersed with what's happening, and that's kind of strange. You have to kind of get past that, and once that kind of is ended by the first 100 pages, and then it just jumps straight into the action, which is kind of a bit weird. And this also, you don't really find much out. Paige within like maybe the first 30 to 50 pages, Paige has been captured by the government. And I really don't feel like that's a spoiler, because it's just weird. You don't see really much of her life. You only see like maybe 5 pages of her within the gang, but it's kind of better because Paige has these flashbacks back to her life in the gang and kind of how she developed relationships within the gang, and kind of how she came to be there, and that kind of makes it a bit better, I think, and that kind of, otherwise that would be something that really bugged me, but because of the flashbacks it didn't. But so that was something I liked, and I also think this book is good because it doesn't have as much focus on the romance. I think that the romance was done really well. It's kind of non-existent for the most part of the novel. It's not at all insta-love, and it's not really, I think it's done so well. Like there's kind of, it is a bit of a trope, but it's done so well that I didn't really mind. And I think the characters in this, Paige is an excellent character. I thought she was really well developed. I thought she was excellent. And I think some of the minor characters were good as well. Obviously some of them had more kind of prominent features than others, and I'm hoping that they'll continue to develop in the rest of this series. I thought the plot was really good as well. It was very fast paced and not what I was expecting. And it was really enjoyable, and I also really enjoyed the ending. I thought it was a really good ending, very climactic and massive, not really a massive cliffhanger, but there is a cliffhanger at the end of this novel, and I'm so glad I read this with only like a month to go until the second book came out, because I don't know how I'd have survived otherwise, knowing that I had to wait like a whole year, and also the release date for the second book was pushed back as well, so I can imagine how painful that was. But overall, a really good book. I recommend this if you like very complex fantasy worlds. Again, I do find that there's slightly a problem with how much there is kind of a lot of complexity in there, which I don't think is really needed. It becomes confusing, and what I dislike, I think, most is the unrecognisable slang. I can kind of, I'm British, and this is written by a British author, and I feel like there was a lot of slang that like is supposed to be British slang, which I didn't know. I don't know if that's like an area thing, but I've lived in 2 countries within Britain, and like in very different areas, and I feel like I still didn't know it, which was kind of slightly strange. But basically there's this massive glossary at the back which goes on for pages, and I kind of feel like when you've got a glossary that long, maybe you shouldn't be using so many of those words. I don't know. I did kind of enjoy it, but at the same time I didn't like it. So those are my thoughts, and I'd recommend this if you do like fantasy and kind of dystopian. It fits into a lot of different genres, I think, which is good, and I'd really recommend this for a lot of people, and I think it's good for both adults and readers of YA. There is a bit of violence in it, but it's not really gory. Just a bit of a warning for that to be aware of, or something that I found kind of a little bit gory. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I'm really looking forward to reading the second book in this series. So I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know if you've read this in the comments, or kind of what you thought of it, and or if you're like planning to read it, and leave me any questions as well, and I'll see you all soon for another video. Bye!